Well, hello and happy Tuesday. It is digital host A.J. Wuest here, welcoming you back to Before the Four, where I take you through 48's top news stories and then some before our 4 o'clock newscast. Wherever you're watching Before the Four right now, of course, as always, I want to thank you for watching and spending just a bit of your Tuesday afternoon with me here. Yo, fall is here, y'all. It is certainly my kind of weather right now here in North Alabama. I don't know about you all, but it is incredible out there. This morning felt so good outside, and with fall here, you know what that means. Halloween is just around the corner. In our 48 Facebook question of the day, what was your favorite Halloween costume as a kid? Now that is what I want to know, and make sure to stick around for the end of today's Before the Four, because I'm going to shout out some of my favorite responses from you all. But until then, let's now jump into our top news stories, and starting things off with the weather, as we're just days away from Hurricane Milton making landfall in Florida. 48 First Alert Chief Meteorologist Brad Travis with the details, as well as our forecast here in the Tennessee Valley. Brad?
AJ, our weather continues to be perfect. An easy forecast for us. Not much going on. Things are going to be quiet the rest of the week. Another cold front's coming in next week, and it's going to be colder than the one we had this morning. So just get ready for that. Upper 30s, low 40s on the way next week for overnight lows, highs in the 70s. That's where we are now, for the most part. 82 Huntsville, that's the warm spot. Latest on Milton, winds at 155 miles an hour. The new update will be coming out at 4 o'clock, so about 30 minutes away or so. So again, look for that. If anything, it's slowed down just a bit, and it may be more of an overnight tomorrow night into Thursday morning landfall, still expected at landfall as a Category 3 storm with winds around 125 miles an hour, maintaining Category 2 status across most of the state. One of the things this storm is going to be fighting, and the good thing is it's got some wind shear ahead of it, and that's associated with that cold front that we just had move through here, and it's eventually that area in blue is going to catch up with the storm. It'll run into it. One of the things that may happen, though, and I'm looking at some of the data, is as it may rapidly collapse after landfall, the wind field may spread out and cause more wind damage as it moves from Tampa to Orlando along Interstate 4. So again, that's something to watch. Here's the latest timing here as we get into Wednesday morning. Rain starts to move into the state of Florida, nothing around here, and the winds start to get to tropical storm force by Wednesday evening. So this is some good news. With the delay, it means they're allowed to get a little bit more time here to evacuate people who aren't quite heeding the warning, those that may want to stay a little bit later. But at some point in time, it's going to be too late to get out of there. The Tampa Bay area down to Sarasota looks to be hardest hit, and you continue to see that move up towards Winter Haven and Orlando. Meanwhile, we are well to the north of this, dry air and just beautiful weather out there. Perfect evenings and perfect overnight hours. Overall, not much else to talk about but that secondary cold front moving in. So plenty to update on the tropics coming up at 4, 5, and 6, but not much to update on around here. Back to you, AJ.
Well, thank you, Brad. And in Florida this morning, of course, millions are bracing for the arrival of Hurricane Milton, while still coping with the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. Some 15 million people under flood watches and 11 million more at risk for tropical tornadoes. At this time, forecast models show Milton tracking towards the Tampa Bay metro area, expected to make landfall tomorrow as a powerful Category 3 storm. NBC's Tom Yamas has more.
All along Florida's Gulf Coast, the race to escape is on. Residents filling sandbags, boarding up windows, and trying to clear debris that Hurricane Helene left behind. With up to 15 feet of storm surge possible, state officials are preparing for the largest evacuation since Hurricane Irma in 2017. Freeways already gridlocked for miles. Tampa's mayor with this blunt warning.
If you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
Tampa resident Jana Thatch and her family taking no chances after Helene's storm surge threatened her home.
My kids can't unsee what happened last time, and I don't want that to be another experience for them. Officials are most concerned about neighborhoods like this one, Madera Beach near Tampa, because of all the debris that's piled up. What the storm surge won't push into these homes could be lifted up by those hurricane-force winds and become dangerous projectiles.
Milton's winds reaching up to 180 miles per hour. The Cat 4 hurricane visible from the International Space Station as it moves across the Gulf of Mexico. On NBC6 South Florida, veteran meteorologist John Morales emotional at the storm's increasing threat.
I apologize. This is just horrific.
3.5, 4 feet, so around here.
At Tampa General, facilities manager Dustin Pasteur was here during Helene, making sure the hospital's aqua fence was holding strong against the dangerous storm surge. He knows it could be even worse this time.
They're forecasting potentially a 12-foot storm surge with Hurricane Milton. Will this hold up?
It should. I mean, 12 feet is about here, so you'd still have another maybe 3 feet. It'll depend on a lot of things.
In neighborhoods devastated by Hurricane Helene, residents like Abby Lewis are trying to keep it together as they try to escape this relentless hurricane season.
I haven't allowed myself to kind of take in the emotional aspect.
Saving just a few precious mementos.
You know, I guess a good moment. But you gotta keep it together.
And no time to grieve what's been lost.
Do you have any idea what you're gonna come back home to?
Well, it's already gone. It's a lot of us not knowing where we'll go.
Well, thank you. Now a story out of Florence. Officials this morning confirmed the identity of a man who was found dead last Friday. Now, Florence police say on October 4th, around 1:30 p.m., a man was found lying in Sweetwater Creek. The man has now been identified as 69-year-old Clarence Spann of Florence. Spann had been reported missing and was last seen September 20th. His body has been sent for autopsy, and police say no foul play is suspected. Now, this is all the information we have on this situation at this time, but we'll be sure to update you all as soon as we learn more. But now moving over to Tuscumbia, where a former police officer today was sentenced to decades behind bars after he pled guilty to manslaughter. Now today, Jay Stewart, who you're seeing on screen, was sentenced to 20 years in prison. Stewart pled guilty to manslaughter in August. Now his charge stems from a fatal wreck that occurred on Hawk Pride Mountain Road back in October of 2022. Stewart hit and killed Terry Hinton, who was walking on the road at the time. An investigator said Stewart was driving 90 miles per hour and under the influence when he crashed. And now in Lauderdale County, a former detention center administrative assistant has been arrested after a nearly year-long investigation. Now, this is according to the Lauderdale County Sheriff's Office. In November of 2023, the Sheriff's Office was alerted to money being missing from an account held by Turnkey Correctional Banking System. This was a bank used by the inmates. Now, during the investigation, Chantel Brown, who you see on screen, was identified as the suspect in the case. The investigation was then turned over to the Alabama State Bureau of Investigations. Brown was indicted by a grand jury for 60 counts of computer tampering and theft of property. She was arrested last Friday, and Brown was booked into the Lauderdale County Detention Center. She has since been released on a $180,000 bond. And now, a story out of Huntsville. Mayor Tommy Battle, along with city officials, broke ground on a brand new park this morning. The park will be located at Hazeland Road. It will be a 9-acre park and will simply be called the Park at Hayes Farm. Now, when it's finished, officials say it will have a gazebo, a windmill, a lagoon, and a pavilion with restrooms. A fitness court will also be there, along with walking paths, and it will connect to the city's Greenway network. And also in Huntsville, I know a lot of you watching are probably getting really excited about this. The Dean Dillon Songwriters Celebration at Probst Arena is, of course, this week, and country music fans here in North Alabama are certainly getting excited for it. The show will pay tribute to the great Dean Dillon, who wrote or co-wrote over 50 hit songs from icon George Strait. Now, the Dean Dillon and Friends Songwriters Celebration will be at the VBC tonight, starting at 7:30, and tomorrow night, it'll feature performances from George Strait, Vince Gill, Riley Green, Justin Moore, Randy Houser, Dustin Lynch, and many, many others. 48's Callie Neese was there today, and take a listen to what Dean Dillon had to say.
And I'm just delighted that we're investing in the children here in Huntsville area, and also our veterans. God love you. God thank you for what these guys and gals do for us every day. It's just a wonderful way for me and our organization to give back.
Absolutely, doing a lot for the community there. I believe they raised $10,000 to help school music programs, and also doing a lot for the veterans there. But yes, that was Dean Dillon. Super exciting event tonight. But now a story in case you missed it. The Limestone County Commission is looking to allocate nearly $500,000. 48's Nick Ballinger with the story.
Limestone County is sitting on $459,000 that's been rolling in for 2 years now, and not a single cent has been used yet. This money was awarded to the state in a lawsuit settlement involving opioid distributors and was ultimately placed into the hands of county commissioners.
You know, it's been a process that we've all worked through trying to get to where we're at.
Limestone County Commission Chairman Colin Daly says there are strict rules in place for what the money is earmarked for. Take Madison County, for example. Madison County Commissioner Phil Vandiver says they've spent $50,000 on adult drug court and can possibly use the remainder on addiction treatment in the Madison County Jail, something Daly agrees with.
We'd love to use some of it in our jail, you know, to take care of our situations we have in there with opioid addiction.
But one group in the county wants action to be taken now, even taking their concerns right to the county office.
Addiction is living hell on earth. And I've seen people go from the gutter all the way to the boardroom. And we just feel like they should go to the appropriate proposals and just be released to the community so that we can fight fentanyl addiction.
Patrick Durkin moved to Limestone County from Seattle to help people in this community fight addiction, something he fought himself just 6 years ago.
And I completely changed my life through transitional living, through treatment, and just a good faith-based recovery program.
There's not a family out there that haven't been affected by drug addictions or drug abuse. You know, whatever we do with the money, we just want it to have a good plan, where we can see where it's going and, just help people. That's what it's for.
Thank you, Nick. Now let's turn to the race for the White House. With just 4 weeks to go until Election Day, Vice President Harris faced a grilling on 60 Minutes. CBS says former President Trump backed out of their planned interview, the Republican nominee instead focusing his attacks on the federal government's response to Hurricane Helene and facing new criticism over new claims. Our Chief White House correspondent, Peter Alexander, has the latest.
In the final month until Election Day, Kamala Harris looking to persuade undecided voters in a series of interviews. Last night on 60 Minutes, the vice president responding to criticism that she has changed her position on key issues from fracking to immigration.
I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground.
The vice president was pressed whether she regretted the administration's initial border policy.
From day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem. Okay?
But the numbers did quadruple.
And the numbers today, because of what we have done, we have cut the flow of illegal immigration by half.
Harris was also asked for more details on a recent revelation that she is a gun owner.
I have a Glock, and I've had it for quite some time. And look, Bill, my background is in law enforcement. And so there you go.
Have you ever fired it?
Yes. Of course I have. At a shooting range.
Former President Trump appearing on a previously taped Fox News interview asked by Laura Ingraham whether he'll use the justice system to go after his political rivals.
A lot of people say that's what should happen. You want to know the truth.
Pressed further.
But you're not going to do that. When you get in office, you're going to look at all your political enemies.
No, I want to make this the most successful country in the world.
Meanwhile, as Hurricane Milton barrels toward Florida, Trump is again slamming the Biden administration's Helene response.
So we're into almost $300 billion for Ukraine, and yet they're offering people $750
for immediate needs.
For the worst, but for the worst hurricane that anybody's seen.
In fact, FEMA says that $750 is an initial direct relief payment for emergency supplies like food and water, while they assess a person's eligibility for more money. Harris seizing on Trump's claims.
It's extraordinarily irresponsible.
Well, thank you. Well, the 21st annual Liz Hurley Ribbon Run is coming to downtown Huntsville on October 19th. And today I had the absolute honor of interviewing a breast cancer survivor, a trailblazer, of course, the one and only, our own Liz Hurley for 48 Now. Liz and I spoke back here for about an hour today, and take a listen to what she had to say about not following the recipe. Speaking of family, I recently read an article about you and the Ribbon Run. It was from about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And the article mentions a cookbook that came from your grandmother. And inside the book, it was such a sweet note. It said, "Sweet Liz, don't always follow the recipe." Can you speak on that cookbook a bit?
Oh my gosh. Well, my grandmother was a preacher's wife.
Uh-huh.
She was a prolific cook. She didn't need to have a cookbook, but I think she wrote a cookbook. I think she was, I just remember she was always cooking and made the best meals. And gosh, and she taught me to cook. She taught my daughter to cook. And yeah, Sweet Liz, don't always follow the recipe. I guess that would be probably a good way to think about that in life. You know, always think out of the box. You can color outside the lines. You can challenge a little bit, but know that it's going to be okay. And I think probably that applies in this case because I didn't follow a recipe.
That's right.
I didn't follow that when it came to breast cancer. I don't follow that when it comes to cooking either. It's always a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit more of that, you know? So I think I learned that lesson early on of, you know, follow the recipe to a certain extent, listen to others who have a lot more experience, but ask if you can kind of modify the recipe a little bit. And I think by doing that personally, for going the route that I took, I think I'm alive today because of that. I think clear heads came together and we talked about the pros and the cons. And believe me, that recipe was out there. Here was the traditional recipe. Here's the recipe you want to do. And like everything else in life, you know, you get out a piece of paper, plus, minus, pros, cons. And I had the list going of the pros and the cons. And I had to make a decision one day. And that decision, after consulting with a doctor and making a pack and promising that we would go a traditional route and follow the recipe if things didn't start working out. But I think that I'd like to think that I'm alive today because of that, and hopefully making a difference for other women who will follow in my footsteps.
Incredible interview today with our own Liz Hurley. We started the interview and it felt like only like 10-15 minutes passed and it was over, but no, looking back at the interview, it was about an hour long and it absolutely flew by today. It did not feel like an hour, but I guess that's what they say. Time flies by when you're having fun, and that was certainly so much fun getting to talk to Liz for 48 Now today. It has not been published on our website quite yet, but by the end of the week, we'll have that story up for you all. But yes, the 21st annual Liz Hurley Ribbon Run, October 19th. Be there. It'll be in downtown Huntsville, and there'll also be a survivors walk for the breast cancer survivors out there. But yes, again, I cannot express it enough. Had an awesome time interviewing Liz today. But now let's head into the stories you're just not going to want to miss in our evening newscast. Everything some Madison County and Fort Payne residents are doing to help those in Florida as Hurricane Milton approaches. Get that story from 48's Noah Cowell. Another story you're just not going to want to miss. Looking for signs of abuse that are not black and blue. And finally, Medicare changes that you need to know. That story from 48's Sarah Grace Kennedy. And these are just a few of the stories you're just not going to want to miss in our evening newscasts. And you guys have been extremely patient, and it is now that time. Our 48 Facebook question of the day: what was your favorite Halloween costume as a kid? I had so many growing up. My mother was a very creative-minded person, and every year I had a better Halloween costume, it seemed like, that she made herself. I remember I was SpongeBob one year. She spray painted or painted a box to look like SpongeBob, like a cardboard box, cut out armholes, a face hole, and I was SpongeBob. That is one of them. Definitely have a few others. But what I want to know is what you all had to say. And let's see. Cassie said, Ninja Turtles with the plastic mask. An absolute classic. Cassie, thank you so much for commenting. Jacqueline said, Kimberly, the Pink Power Ranger, of course. Another classic. Jacqueline, thank you for commenting. And then Mandar said Tinkerbell. Awesome. Mandar, thank you so much for commenting. But that is just about it for today's Before the Four. But I want to thank y'all for sticking around and spending a little of your Tuesday afternoon with me. With that said, I hope you all have a great night, and thank you for watching. You all have a great night.